Hi, everyone. Welcome to our New Zealand top 5 reasons to study abroad, or to study abroad in New Zealand, I should say. We're super excited to be chatting with you today. So we can go ahead and introduce ourselves. So my name is Kate Hilby. I'm an associate director at TEAN, and I'm a program manager for all of our New Zealand programs. And I've also had the opportunity to travel to New Zealand several times for orientations and site visits. And then I lived in New Zealand for a year for work about 3 years ago. So I also have a really exciting guest today, 2018 alum, who's going to share all these wonderful things about New Zealand with you. Hello, Betsy. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey guys, Kia ora, I'm Betsy, and I studied abroad in 2018 with TEAN. I was at the University of Otago in Dunedin, New Zealand, and it was so epic. It was so cool. I mainly studied tourism, but also traveled a whole bunch, and honestly, so stoked to share my top 5 reasons with you guys today. And just to kick it off, so just to tell you before, I studied abroad at the University of Otago, and they're known for their tourism papers. And so that's kind of like number 5 top reason. I basically went there hoping to enhance my tourism degree, and I basically studied destination management, sport tourism, and it was really cool because for my destination management class, I actually got to go to Queenstown and talk with the city council about tourism planning, and honestly just the triple bottom line, all these tourism topics that were super cool, great to engage with locals and stuff. And then my sport tourism class is also really dope because I got to go to a bunch of rugby games and meet the team and stuff. And it was just such a vibe. It was so fun. And I also forgot to mention, I took some Maori classes too. So I got to learn the Maori culture, the indigenous culture of New Zealand. And honestly, it was so dope. Great school. And there's a bunch of really great schools I go to in New Zealand. I know Kate knows a lot about that as well.
Yeah, so basically in New Zealand, you can study anything across different universities. So each university kind of has a specialty, but they also have more broad papers. Papers, by the way, are what they call courses in New Zealand. So if you hear us referring to papers, it's what they call just what we would refer to as courses. So yeah, it's a great reason to study in New Zealand because if you're an engineering major or philosophy or communication or pre-med, we can basically find a program that's going to fit for you. So another great reason is you can take classes in English. So a lot of students are kind of looking for maybe a place to study abroad that offers a lot of courses in English that maybe is more difficult to find, but New Zealand, all the universities in New Zealand are top ranked classes in English and a wide variety of options for you to take. So we can move on to number 4, big but small. So in New Zealand, you probably may know, it's kind of made up of 2 islands. So it's a pretty small country, which makes it super easy to travel. But then it's also big in the sense that there's so many different things that you can see. So you could be in New Zealand's biggest city, Auckland, with 1.5 million people, and in less than 2-hour flight, be down in Queenstown, which is this just gorgeous, gorgeous mountain town. So in the winter, it turns into this beautiful ski town. And then in the summer, it's just a gorgeous lake and mountains. So you really can kind of have that big city and then kind of go on to a smaller town, a completely different vibe. So big yet small indeed. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. What do you think, Betsy?
Yeah, no, it's great to mention. I know for me, I was able to travel a lot when I was in New Zealand because it's so small. It's so cool to kind of check out the different corners. I lived in Dunedin, so it's a pretty small coastal town, pretty easy to navigate. But then during my semester breaks and stuff, I did road trips at different parts of the South Island, road trip with a bunch of my friends, checked out Christchurch, checked out all the different pockets, Abel Tasman, northern part of the South Island. There's just so many different cool corners to check out, whether it's the beaches, mountains, different cities. You really can't go wrong. And I will say too, it's actually Kate was saying, so easy to get to the North Island as well. Living on the South Island, it's only a couple hours of flight to Wellington. I spent a couple of days there with some friends and explore the art scene too. So if you're looking for that artsy kind of city vibe, if you're looking to kind of change it up from nature, that has that too. So super diverse and super fun to explore, definitely. And before I forget this, one of the other really cool parts. Coming in at number 3, sweet ass Kiwis. The people are so nice. It blows my mind. I didn't think people could be so nice. That house that you see, that photo at the bottom of the screen, that's actually the house I lived in. We call it a flat in New Zealand. And I had like roommates who are my flatmates. And one really special flatmate that comes to mind is my Kiwi host, Tiareki. He was such a solid dude, so kind. He knew so much about New Zealand, about university life, and he was just a great friend to have to kind of navigate my time overseas anyway, whether it's like classes, traveling, just kind of becoming a local in the best way that I can with lingo and just like trying to fit in. And I kind of referenced earlier with like the Maori culture, it's like the indigenous culture of New Zealand, and he's Maori too, and he has like a million friends, and they all took me in as one of their own after like a week. And I was like, I've only known you a week. You don't have to do this. So kind, so warm. They're just happy to have a great conversation. And honestly, he and like my other friends that I traveled with are friends for life. And I'm so grateful I got to meet them.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off of that. Oh,
And I will
sorry.
say, yeah.
No,
Oh
go
no,
ahead.
you're so good. Keep
No,
going.
no, no. No, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say too, like we still like Zoom every now and again, like FaceTime. Like I visited some friends, even like traveling to get to where I am now, that like I met New Zealand that had that similar like New Zealand vibe, very chill, very kind. But Kate, get after it. Tell me all
Yeah,
the
no,
things.
I was just going to piggyback right off of that. Like the people are so kind, happy to have a chat. There's always a huge sense of community in New Zealand, so a larger community, and then also, your university community, your flatmate community. Like when I was living there, my now husband and I were out watching a rugby game at this, like they had this, it's called the Lions Tour, but it's this huge thing that happens every 4 years. And we were sitting there and kind of talking about how we don't know anything about rugby because we're Americans. And this other couple just kind of brought us in. They let us sit with them. They kind of explained what was going on. And so I think that's just like a prime example of like how friendly and kind and sense of community and inclusion that people in New Zealand have. So definitely can't say enough about the amazing people.
Definitely. That reminds me of a story too. My flatmate, my Kiwi host, he actually worked at the local restaurant down the road, and they would do karaoke night like every week, and he'd always get everyone to come. He's like, "You have to come, you have to sing." And by the end of the semester, like we had like kind of like house jokes and stuff like that. And he was like, "You're singing next," and I had to like sing in front of everybody. He's like, "Yeah, you're going after it right now."
Now you're part of
So,
them.
yeah,
So, as we're
definitely.
talking about these sweet as Kiwis, just other things to keep in mind. Betsy mentioned that she had a Kiwi host and a Kiwi mate. So, that's similar across like a bunch of different universities in the housing that students have. They try to assign at least a local student, at least to like a group of flats or within your flat, just so you have or students have a reference or a resource person to help kind of show them around and just that local kind of built-in contact and friend to have right off the bat. Which brings us to our next top reason. Number 2 is the laid back island vibe. So, as I mentioned, New Zealand is made up of 2 big islands and then one little island, Stewart Island, a bunch of little islands, really. But you always sort of feel like you are on an island. It's a bit more laid back. Of course, if you're going to be in a bigger city, you're going to have a bit more hustle and bustle. But for example, of like a laid back island vibe, like a cultural event in Auckland, might be taking a ferry out to Rangitoto. So that's like a kind of old volcano that you can hike on and kind of have views back looking over the city. You might go out to Waiheke Island to go kayaking. So the fact that you're on an island is kind of ever present, I should say. And I don't know, Betsy, if you want to talk about like in Dunedin going off campus just a few minutes and like you're doing a peninsula hike where there's a bunch of wildlife and the outdoor vibe there.
Yeah, no, so TEAN was so good to me. We did the peninsula hike like the first week we got there, and I'm like, I'm already seeing so much. It's only been a few days. Stoke is all time right now. So that was a really gorgeous hike that we all did. And then just for me, like I'm really into surfing. Like I even went surfing this last weekend, and that was just a great way to like kind of get away from the chaos of classes sometimes. So like the beach was like an 8-minute bus ride away from like my flat, and my flat was right next to campus. So like after my Tuesday papers, you could find me out like in the ocean paddling out, like trying to catch all the waves. Didn't catch all of them, but you can only try. You hope.
There's just so much to do in Dunedin. Like you can be off campus, like she was saying, going surfing, different beaches like Tunnel Beach. And basically you can have this like island vibe experience, right? Regardless of what location you're in. So you're never too far away from the coast or some sort of outdoor activity. So it's just an incredible reason to study in New Zealand. So we can go ahead and switch to our number one reason, which I think is the reason a lot of students choose New Zealand in addition to the amazing classes and all of the other topics that we've mentioned already today. So the weekends of Wanderlust. So like you could just be hiking anywhere, anytime. There's always a good hike to go on. You may have heard of the Great Walks in New Zealand, which are kind of a highlight for all of our students. So it's kind of a multi-day, 2 to 3 day tramp, they call hiking in New Zealand. So a lot of tramping trips. There's clubs at every university. So there might be a hiking club or kayaking club, like different clubs that students can get involved with every weekend. And Betsy, I don't know if you want to chat a little bit about like your different hikes and
Yeah,
Milford
yeah.
Sound.
Yeah, no, it's so gorgeous. Whether like you're super close to campus, like surfing or just trying to enjoy the coast or getting away on the weekends. I mean, I found myself backpacking every weekend. It was so beautiful. Fjordland has some of the best hikes in the world. Kepler Track has a special place in my heart. For 40 miles, you could just enjoy this crazy hike that has like probably the most biodiverse hike I've ever been on. You could start out in like the jungle, and then by the time you reach like the ridgeline, you could see all the mountains of like southern New Zealand, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. You can see that middle photo is like with the 3 people, like that was that hike, and I felt like I was just like in the middle of nowhere in the best way, like so far away from everything else. But yeah, there's so many hikes that you can do. Like I have a list of hikes I still want to do when I go back. But my friends and I would joke, the green screens are unreal in NZ. Like you think it's fake, but it's real. And it's absolutely remarkable. And I cannot recommend it enough. The stars too. It's truly a world of its own. So
Yeah, and I think that we talk a lot about, like when we're talking about hiking or the mountains or something, we talk a lot about the South Island, but the North Island has its own kind of entire dynamic of hiking too. So it's different than like more mountainous stuff, but it's still beautiful. Like you can be 35 minutes outside of Auckland, kind of on the west coast of the North Island, and just be in this like beautiful, lush green Waitakere ranges. So, whether you're in Auckland, Dunedin, Wellington, even Massey or in Palmerston North, like there's definitely hiking and outdoor activities and clubs and everything like that you can get involved in. One quick note is that we kind of start off your semester with this like wanderlust in mind. So every student will get to kick off their semester with the TEAN Bridging Cultures orientation. So that's going to be in Auckland and Rotorua. So it's a traditional Maori welcome. Once you're in Auckland, you'll get an introduction to like New Zealand's beautiful outdoors by going to these like really cool geothermal kind of pools and geothermal parks. And then just really kicking off your semester with the weekends of Wanderlust in mind. Betsy, you went to Rotorua, didn't you?
yeah, I spent some time there. The pools are so cool. And honestly, like you get there and you're just kind of like, I can't believe this is real. Like the colors, just like the kind of the variation it offers, it's extraordinary. I was gonna say too, for the North Island, I think it's Taranaki Falls. That's also super gorgeous as well. Like definitely a must check out spot, definitely. It's cool. New Zealand, the biodiversity of the country is really remarkable. Like you can get all sorts of like adventures, outdoor experiences. So
Yeah.
I definitely recommend.
Definitely. And like you can do a weekend, like you can start your weekend, kind of have a hub, like say you're in Wellington or in Queenstown. I know we keep mentioning Queenstown because it's so beautiful. But like going to Queenstown for a weekend, then that's kind of a jumping off point for taking a bus to spend a day in Milford Sound in Fiordland National Park, which is just To me, it's the most beautiful place I've ever traveled to in like the whole world. I might be biased because I do love New Zealand, but I've been fortunate to go there several times, I think like 10 or 12 times, and each time is just as stunning, just as beautiful as the last time. So New Zealand keeps you wanting more as well. So you always want to be seeing the next beautiful fjordland or waterfall or hike or anything like that. So I mean, there's just no shortage of things to do in New Zealand on your weekends once you're done with your classes.
Yeah. And the nice thing too about Queenstown, it's also really close to Mount Aspiring National Park as well. So there's a bunch of really great hikes that go through there as well. Like Root Burn Track is iconic. It goes through both Fjordland and Mount Aspiring National Park. And you like myself, I did that hike with a couple of friends and we went to get burgers in Queenstown after that. I feel like that was a really long hike. It was gorgeous, but we're starving.
You deserve the third burger after that.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and just to go back to like the North Island, and one to highlight is the Tongariro Alpine Crossing. So that's like a full day hike, but you can get there pretty easily from like Wellington or Palmerston North and even Auckland. So the bus system in New Zealand's really convenient for students. You might have friends, like your Kiwi host might be have a group that's going to drive down or something. You can jump in with them. So yeah, I mean, I know Betsy and I could just talk for hours about different experiences and specific hikes and stuff, but it's just, yeah, I mean, it's an incredible country to spend your semester. And I know Betsy, I think I can speak for you saying that you can't recommend it enough. So
Yeah, I'm trying to
yeah,
go back.
yeah,
So many
exactly.
good hikes. I will say too, I have to mention this for all the people who are thinking about Christchurch, the Southern Alps are right there. Mount Cook is like your backyard. And Mueller Hut is by far one of the most amazing hikes you can do there. It's just, you're kind of in a world of your own and the views are just unreal. It's after Sir Edmund Hillary too, an iconic climber. And there's so much history to it. And there's so many like good views. Highly recommend there as well, just for all the Christchurch folk. So
Yeah, and I'll just go back to when I kind of briefly mentioned the clubs and societies. We definitely recommend students getting involved in that because it's going to be the best way, whether you're at the University of Auckland or AUT or Victoria University of Wellington or at Otago and Dunedin. Like joining those clubs are going to be the best way to like meet locals that will take you out to these more local hikes. So you're not kind of like just like going off your own research. So yeah, joining those clubs across any university that you might attend is definitely suggested so that you can hit all these awesome spots.
definitely. And they call it the tramp, like tramping is hiking and tracks are trails. So it's the tramping club, but it's hiking, just so you know.
Yeah. And I would say most of our students do join these clubs. And then, like I said, it's a great way to meet other local students, other international students, and just expand your social circle and like your traveling circle as well for these weekends of Wanderlust.
Absolutely. So good.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Betsy, for sharing all your stories with us. It's been super fun to like reminisce about these things. So, Betsy, can you talk to us about how like traveling in New Zealand was a jumping off point for you for like other countries or other like travel opportunities? Um, yeah, can you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, of course. So yeah, I studied abroad 2018, and before then I hadn't traveled like a whole lot. Like I'd spent some time in Canada, but nothing super like extreme or wild or just different, I guess. And I was considering before choosing New Zealand, I was torn between New Zealand and South America, but I was really like kind of nervous about like the language difference, like the language barrier, like learning a new language, kind of immersing myself. And so I figured, go to New Zealand, have a great foundation and kind of understand how traveling far away kind of goes, but having the familiarity of English, like, oh, I can make a friend and it's fine. There's not like that disconnect. And honestly, it was one of those experiences where like I realized, oh, this is way more feasible than I realized. And now the world's my oyster and I feel more comfortable to travel to other places. And I was lucky enough to travel to South America for work and learn Portuguese and Spanish when I was traveling and working through there because of the courage I got from studying abroad in New Zealand. It really helped with my confidence and made me hungrier for travel too, which travel bug is so real. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's awesome. We do have a question in the chat about like flights. So getting flights from like Auckland to Dunedin or Auckland to Queenstown or Dunedin to Wellington. Um, in your experience, how easy was it like booking flights and the ease of travel and things like that?
Yeah, it really wasn't too complicated. Just like book your flights maybe like a couple weeks out, but it wasn't super crazy. It's kind of flying from like small town to small town kind of thing. It's not like a New York to LA. It's very chill, like average like US city to an average US city, like very easy, very affordable for the most part. Just don't book things last minute. And fly Air New Zealand, that's the move. I'm trying to remember, I'm blanking on the name of the other airline that is really prominent. But just I would fly Air New Zealand. That's definitely the recommended route if you're looking to travel between the islands. So
Yeah, and
yeah,
there
it's pretty
are,
easy.
yeah, like flights can be pretty inexpensive. So we recommend students and your on-site staff would provide all this information, and we go over it during orientation, but kind of signing up for the emails. I know we all get like 1,000 promotional emails these days, but they'll send through like Air New Zealand or Jetstar will send through, um, special deals they're having. So you can just keep an eye on those sorts of things. If you're looking to travel more like budget, Jetstar is definitely the way to go. It's kind of one of those airlines where you can get a $40 ticket from Auckland to Wellington, but just keep in mind you can't check a bag, different things like that. So
Yeah.
there's definitely affordable, easy ways. And yeah, just booking through like the websites or the airline websites or like Google Flights. So it's really easy or really easy country to navigate and to travel through. Here's one. So people often say study abroad changed my life. And for you, Betsy, I think that's like 100% true. So how did your experience kind of change your path? Like what direction were you going? And then once you studied abroad, it kind of shifted things. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so as I kind of mentioned earlier, I studied hospitality and tourism as my undergrad. And before I even going to New Zealand, I had actually worked at a hotel here in Oregon the summer before. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna like work hotels, that will be the vibe. Like no problem, right? And then I go to study abroad and I'm like, oh no, this is really cool. Like I really am enjoying this. And I'm realizing more and more, like even since I've gotten back, like I served as an intern with TEAN for the full year after I got back from New Zealand. And honestly, it was just so fulfilling to like share my stories and help people have the same experience or like a life-changing experience like I had. Like this has honestly kind of been like my dream job to like help people, see the world in a way that's just so adventurous, like through TEAN. And it's just cool to kind of connect on these kind of stories and experiences and to relate to each other about New Zealand or the next destination. So it's been a whirlwind in the best way.
That's awesome. One question I missed, but we may have touched on earlier. Does the University of Auckland have similar like hiking clubs and activities? Yes, pretty much all of the universities will have a club or society that's related to like hiking, tramping, being in the outdoors. So definitely recommend looking into those. And during orientation week, so once you're on campus, there will be like an O week, I guess we would call it, where they'll have all their clubs and societies out for a couple days. So you can go through and like sign up and chat with the people about the people that run those clubs and just kind of sign up for those.
Sweet.
Awesome. Well, it's been so fun, Betsy, getting a chance to chat with you about your experience. And Betsy and I were actually in New Zealand together because I was her program manager. So it's just so fun to talk to you about that and just kind of really walk down memory lane. So if you'd like to connect with an alumni like Betsy, we'll put a link in the chat. So it's a form that you can complete and we'll like pair you up with a recent alum. And yeah, so if you do have any questions, feel free to email us. Our email is info@teanabroad.org. We'll pop that in the chat as well. And yeah, just we're excited for you. We appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with us today, and hope that we see you in New Zealand soon.
Awesome. Cheers, guys. Thanks for hanging out. It's so fun. Can't recommend it enough.